Okay, so welcome to the October meeting of the Northern California Contest Club. We usually, when we're in person, we pass the microphone around and everyone introduces himself with his call sign and his name. But with Zoom, that's a little hard to do. So we've been experimenting with different pile-up techniques. So this time, I thought I'd try doing it by ARRL section, since the sweepstakes is coming up. So I'm going to call for people in Santa Clara Valley to log in.
Kilo 6 Victor
Whiskey
Alpha.
9 kilo November.
Kilo 6 Victor Alpha.
Norway Delta
K6XX.
2 Tango.
November 5.
All right, turn up the power. Whiskey 9 kilo November.
Uniform.
Last letter Yokohama.
K9YC.
Romeo.
I'm not acknowledging you, just to throw it out, and that'll be
Kilo 6 Radio Bravo.
Kilo 6 Mike.
Kilo Golf 6 Alpha Oscar.
K9YC.
Kilowatt 6 Victor. Kilowatt 6 Victoria, America from the old days.
So this is Whiskey 6 Foxtrot Bravo, but for K6VVA, please copy Whiskey 6 Fox Bravo.
Oh, no, not that. Oh, no, Jack.
Well, it's a good thing you're moving, Jack.
okay.
He did it to me first.
Kilo 6 Golf Hotel Alpha.
Okay, San Joaquin Valley.
November 6 Echo Echo.
Whiskey 6 Charlie Zulu.
That's it. Okay, East Bay.
Kilo 6 Kilo Mike.
Norway Alpha 6 Oscar.
Kilo 8 601.
November 6 Whiskey Mike.
Whiskey Delta 6 Tango.
N6RO.
Tango 6 Victor.
Okay, San Francisco.
November 6 India Echo.
Such good audio.
Booming.
Sacramento Valley.
K6SRZ for San Francisco.
K6MR.
Whiskey Echo 6 Zulu.
W1RH.
Kilo 6 Lima Radio November and Kilo 6 Tango Kilo Delta.
Okay, how about Nevada, I have to say it. Santa Barbara and Oregon.
Santa Barbara. Rubber Duck.
Kilo 6 Sugar Tango, Nevada.
Okay, and how about DX?
Juliet Echo.
Juliet Papa.
Juliet Echo 1 Charlie Kilo Alpha.
Delta Lima 1 Mike Golf Bravo.
Okay, great. Well, thanks everybody. Okay, moving on here. Oops. Why is it not paying attention to me? Strange. Oh, there we go. Just wanted to say a few words about the state of contesting in 2020 without minimizing the tragedy of the COVID virus. Contest activity is way up. So, for example, the CQP had more than 1,000 logs a couple of days ago, and there's more logs coming in. WPX sideband contest had 38% growth, and though there was 60% fewer multis. For some reason, my space bar.
Okay, so somebody's standing in the background.
I got it.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. And looking at the summer NAQPs, the RIDI contest was up 22%, CW was up 36%, and the sideband was up a whopping 46%. Now, of course, this is just 2 data points this year and last year. So it would be interesting to have more data points more frequently, a higher sampling rate. So is there such a contest? Well, here's one, CW Ops every week at 0300. And this is just the data I happen to have, which is my own scores from November 2019 to October 2020. And you can see that there was a marked increase around the time that the COVID virus hit. And it's pretty much stayed the same ever since then, for better or worse. So the big question is what's going to happen after COVID? So it seems to me there's kind of a positive feedback loop in any passion, pursuit, or interest, whether it's a hobby or a profession, where you're interested in that and you get deeper into it, and that generates activity, and then that generates more interest, which generates more activity. And similarly, there's something like that for contests as a whole, or for a contest, where you get more participants, makes it a more fun contest, and then that brings in more participants, and again, a positive feedback. So it's possible that this will reverberate beyond the COVID epidemic, and we hope it will, where people are putting in more time now, they'll get more engaged with contesting, and then continue that after COVID. So we'll see. But anyway, moving back to the present, here's what we have on the schedule for upcoming contests. As Chris was saying, right now, the JARTS RIDI contest is in progress, and Stu Perry was last night. Then the next few weekends are all big contests. CQ Worldwide Sideband next weekend. The weekend after, there's the North American Sideband Sprint. Then comes ARRL CW Sweepstakes, CW Sweepstakes. Then JIDX Phone Contest. Then ARRL Sideband Sweepstakes. And finally, CQ Worldwide CW. And the ones with stars are in our Club KB contest. So be sure to get on and have a lot of fun. So that's all I've got. We're now going to, I had an agenda slide, but somehow I skipped over it. So let me just say what the agenda is for today. First, we're going to have after my introductory remarks, we're going to have a surprise presentation by K6GHA. After that, N6TV is going to give us some tips and pointers on how to operate sweepstakes as effectively as possible. And then finally, N6IE is going to talk about remote contesting using the technique that he's used, the software that he's used. At the moment, I forgot the name of it. So we'll hear from him in a little while. But now I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to Glenn.
All right, Alan, all you.
Not Alan. Glenn.
I don't know. Yeah, we're having some naming call corruptions and busting going on right now. I think we're tired.
Was that Glenn or
Would you like me
Don?
to juggle or?
Yeah.
What's the password? Alan?
I
What's
still
the
got my
password?
banjo.
David, was that Glenn or Don?
Oh, did I say Glenn?
That's okay.
I'm sorry, Don. Yeah, Don.
Yeah, it says my screen is disabled for sharing right now.
Oh, hold on. I'm working on you.
Okay.
Okay. And Don, go.
Great.
Yeah.
There he is. Oh,
Great. There we go. Thank you very much, Dave and Bill. I appreciate it. This is going to be a short presentation, but kind of a one that covers a lot of bases for a lot of Californians over the last few months. In addition to COVID, we've had some real challenges with fires and things like that. And as you may know, Bob K6XX is currently our Phoenix. He's had a pretty disastrous few months here, but he's determined, resilient, and recovering from the CZU fire. I wanted to give you a little bit of background on that and let you know, as you may know, the CZU complex fire covered almost a month and a half, and it covered 135 square miles of Santa Cruz and San Mateo County. Destroyed a number of 1,400, almost 1,500 buildings. And it also impacted one of the oldest California state park, Big Basin Redwood park. That happens to be located directly below or just very close to where K6XX lives. In the process, we did have one person lose their life trying to escape the fire. And I guess considering this was bigger in cost and scope from a disaster and buildings lost perspective than the 1989 quake in California, this is quite an event. What you may not know is 3 other local hams in addition to K6XX that, to my knowledge, were lost their homes as well. On August 16th, the heat lightning storm came in and we had about 11,000 strikes. On August 18th, Bob had a police department person come in and ask him to leave immediately. He came back to find the following left of his home, his QTH. As you can see, there are K3s and KX3s and bits and pieces of memorabilia that he's collected over the years. It was being up there in person. It was quite shocking to see. I can't imagine what he's going through, but he's been very determined since day one when he came down to my place to recover and to move forward. Just so that you know, some of the things that were lost on the wall. Number of you're familiar with Bob XX, and you know that he's got a lot of he had a lot of hardware. These are some of the existing ones that he had, but there were also some special events that Bob participated in. The JARL is one of those. He had a number of plaques and a number of certificates. And JARL was one of the ones that I first remember seeing him seeing the plaque from it in 2011 when he received that. So what I wanted to do was take a moment to introduce Ken Yamamoto, JA1CJP, who is a JARL representative, the IARU Region 3 Director, and he's been involved with a number of disasters and disaster service support in Tokyo. So I just wanted to introduce Ken and allow him to say a few words. If you would, Ken, you can unmute your mic, I believe, and you should be able to go ahead.
Hey, thank you, Don, for introduction. And good afternoon to you all in California and around. And well, thank you very much for this fantastic opportunity to talk to NCCC members, especially Bob K6XX. I doubt he's here, but anyway, he should see this one maybe in later in recordings.
おはようございます。山本さん。
Oh, おはようございます。
Bob K6XX.
Oh, thank you very much, Bob. Okay, we are very sorry to hear the loss of Bob's house and belongings, but JARL wishes that the replacement contest awards of All Asian DX contest may bring some consolidation to him, to Bob, and would like to present them to Bob. JARL looks forward to your return to All Asian DX contest as early as in next year, 2021. Thank you, Don and Bob.
And thank you so much, Ken. I really appreciate you getting up so early in the morning on a Monday morning to come join us and bring those wishes for XX. I do have a certificate, in framed certificate that I'll be presenting to Bob on your behalf. And again, thank you so much for being here this morning.
Subarashi. どうもありがとうございます。
Thank you very much. See you later in the contest.
All right. Well, in addition to that, there's the JIDX. Now, a lot of folks may not know that Bob has been participating and winning quite often in the JIDX since 2003, or at least this is what the records had that I was able to come up with. And as a matter of fact, in some of the slides earlier, you saw some of the plaques associated to the JIDX that were burned almost beyond recognition, except for the embossment in the metal. This is one of the ones that I first was introduced to by Bob up at his QTH. So I was very interested to do the research and to see how influenced he was by this contest. He always talked about it and talked about having his beams and everything set up for this. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Talk JA1CKA, who is the chairman of the JIDX and first licensed in 1966. And Talk, it's been a real pleasure having a conversation with you over email, and it's a real pleasure to have me introduce you this morning, your time, and this afternoon ours. So without further ado, Talk.
Okay, thank you, Dan, and very good morning from Tokyo to our members. I'm glad to be here with you. And it's I'm so surprised to get information that Bob K6XX lost his environment, everything. So I'm glad to hear that. Anyway, he is one of the most active contestants and the well-known contestant from California. So he's had a lot of QSO with Japan. Anyway, I hope you are Bob. You are very good operators, and I hope you rebuild your station and hope to be in the contest the very near future, and also in the JIDX and the old age DX contest. And I do not so many things to do for you, but I do anything I can do for you. Anyway, thank you so much to be here, and hope to see you in the contest in the future. Okay, go back to Dan.
All right, Bob, in case you wanted to say something directly to Talk.
Yes, Talk-san, arigato gozaimasu. So good to see you again. And hopefully you'll hear a weak signal from me this weekend. I'll try to be on this weekend's contest.
Oh.
From a tent and low power, but still, we'll try to make it. Sayonara.
Okay, sayonara.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Talk. And again, I want to thank Ken and Talk for joining us so early in the morning. Your commitment and your presence here is gratefully appreciated. I wanted to move forward and talk a little bit about the WRTC that Bob has participated in twice. In 2010 and 2018 in Russia. He had a great event. Let's see if this is, oh, this doesn't seem to be rolling the way I expected it to. There we go. And then in 2018, in the World Radio Sport Team Championship, he represented the U.S. again for a second time. In that process, he improved his performance, and it was in 2017 that I had the pleasure of going over to Germany with Bob in preparation for the 2018 event. And I got to meet quite a few great representatives. However, one of the representatives that does stand out was the representative I'm going to be introducing. This is Chris, DL1MGB. He's the president of the 2018 WRTC. He's been around since my first one was born in 1990. Started as an amateur, and been a very avid DXer, and also contest club member for and representative for Bavarian Contest Club, where I believe at Friedrichshafen. That was the first time I met you, Chris, and you offered me a beer in the local tent, so it had a lasting memory for me. So without further ado, I do want to take this moment. I'm going to stop sharing so Chris can go ahead and share his screen and turn it over to Chris.
Very much, Don. Good afternoon, guys, and good morning to the Japanese friends. For me, it's 11:30 in the evening. Was very sad to hear about the loss of your home, Bob, and can barely imagine what this means actually to you and your family. And fortunately, no one was injured, and everyone is doing fine so far, as the situation permits. When Don contacted me about and talked about his idea putting all this together, I thought now it's time for the hoarded stuff from WRTC, because after 2018 we were happy to get rid of all the equipment, of all the leftovers from WRTC, but there were some bits and pieces still waiting in my basement for an opportunity. So I said, you'll never know. Let's keep them in the basement. And the first one I had so far, let's see, is this. Nope. So this was right after the call sign ceremony. We took a picture of each team, and while they were out in the fields, we printed these on real paper. And when the teams came back from the sites, they had to sign it, and these pictures were given to our volunteers as to remember the WRTC time. And each volunteer team of the specific site got pictures from their team. So this was one, and one other bit I found, which would be very good for Bob to have, as we saw before. This equipment wasn't or is not usable anymore, so brand new coffee mug. And the final one I want to share with you, the brand new polo shirt of the WRTC 2018. Unfortunately, we were not able to imitate all the coffee stains you maybe had on the shirt, on the original shirt, but this one is brand new. And Bob, in the name of the WRTC 2018 organizing committee, I wish you and your wife, your kids, and also your dog all the best for the future, the strength and endurance to build up your new home and your new station, and a lot of years to come to enjoy it. All the best, and 73s from Germany. Bye.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Bob, any quick thing for Chris?
Guten Tag, Chris. Guten Tag. Thank you so very much. My yellow shirt was in perfect condition. It was hanging alongside the plaques as one of my most prized possessions. No coffee stains. However, the coffee cup, I can trade you for the one I have. It doesn't look so well. Don showed a picture of it a moment ago. Dankeschön.
Excellent. Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Chris. I really, again, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming back, spending a late evening from Germany. Again, it's really appreciated.
My pleasure. Thanks.
All right. And we'll talk to you again soon. Let's see. Also, Bob's been quite active in the NCCC. Everybody else on this phone call probably knows that. Past president, past, I believe, VP, past and current board member, and Jim Maxwell Award winner, and also a CQP record holder at one point in 2016. Bob's pretty much done it all in the NCCC. And so I wanted to take a few moments to have David, WD6T, talk a little bit about what's up with the NCCC. And I'll again, David is not only an NCCC president, but he's a composer and first licensed in '67, and again an avid contester, in addition to being president of the NCCC. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing here for a second and hand it over to David. And you might be on mute, David.
Do I have the floor?
You do.
Okay. Well, thanks, Don, and thanks again to Ken and Tuck and Chris for joining us and early and late in your day, respectively. You know, I've been thinking a lot about the various awards that NCCC has and checking up on the website and sort of inventorying, if that's a word, what we have. And, you know, one sticks out, of course, the Founders Trophy, which was founded in 1978 by Jim Niger, N6TJ. And it was awarded the first time in '78. And it represents the highest combined CQ worldwide score for both sideband and CW in the CQ circle of NCCC. Well, so various distinguished people won it from 1978 to 2001. And then in 2002, Bob, K6XX, won it with 1.7 megapoints, which is pretty darn impressive. And that would have been enough. But then he went on to win it again in 2003 with 1.8 megapoints. And then in 2004 with 3.2 and ... kept winning it year after year. In 2013, he had 8.4 megapoints, which is the highest score that anyone has ever achieved for that award. And he continued winning it up to last year, 2019. So that's 18 straight victories out of 42 years, which means he's won 2 out of every 5 of those. And if you go on the website, there was a set of plaques, and the first plaque would have, I think it was 12 nameplates, one for each year. And then when that filled up, they made a second plaque and then a third plaque. And by the third one, it was all K6XX. So we thought it would be appropriate and necessary to recreate a new version of this plaque since it was lost in the fire. And rather than have 3 separate ones, we have one large one. So Don has this plaque. He's going to present it to you next time he sees you, Bob. And congratulations and thanks for all your great work at NCCC and your great contesting.
Oh, thank you, David. That's amazing. That's one of the things I feel the most guilty about is losing that heritage plaque. So, but thank you for replacing it.
Excellent.
You're very welcome.
And David, thank you again for all your help in coordinating in this and this presentation as well. We really appreciate it. I'm sure Bob does as well. Kind of in conclusion, I just wanted to say to everyone that came to make a presentation from around the world and wish Bob the very best in recovery, thank you. Since his fire, he's already been back. He participated in the CQP as N6A and with over 2,200 contacts, and we're excited to have him back in the chair. As you can see from this last slide, he's living the austere life right now from a trailer up on his property, but he is a phoenix. He's already calling into the weekly 10-meter net and doing the things that Bob always has done, and is determined to move forward. Again, I just wanted to say thanks, Bob, for all you've done for me, and from all of these people, thank you for participating and being such a recognized world class operator. And I'm going to turn it over to you for any last comments that you would like to make.
All right, Don. Well, this is a very big surprise. Thank you. You went all over finding these photos, so that's a pretty good collection. Thank you very much for your effort there, Don. And wow, we've spent 30 minutes of everybody's time. Now I feel even more embarrassed. But let's get on with it. Thank you, Don.
All right, and thank you, Bob. I'm going to hand it back to David. And again, David, thanks for the time. Tak, Ken, and Chris, thank you all so much for joining us this morning and this evening.
Okay, well, thanks, Don. Sorry about busting your name. The Santa Cruz 3-letter calls got confused in my mind.
It's okay, I'm low power.
Okay, so next we're going to move on to a little discussion about sweepstakes, which is coming up quickly. If you haven't seen the jug for this month, please check it out, and especially read Bill's W9KKN's column about the award program we're doing. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Bob, who's going to present ARRL Sweepstakes tips and tricks.
Hello, are you able to see the screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. First, for our DX friends, this part will be about 10 minutes long. You can take a bathroom break if you like. And it's about a domestic contest, the ARRL Sweepstakes contest. However, before I do that, I want to let one person break into here to say hi to Bob, and that's someone we haven't heard from a long time. And that's W6RRR, the inventor of the Pirate QSO party, among other things. She's hard at work in San Diego now, and invited her to come say hi to Bob. And once I noticed that picture that I had of her from the old days. So San, if you want to unmute and say a few words, go right ahead now.
Yeah, hi guys. Hope everybody's doing well. I am down in San Diego now doing some signals and computer systems work for the Navy, and definitely thank all you guys and Bob Wolbert, K6XX particularly, for kind of getting me a start in interest in engineering and now a career in it. So yeah, I'm real sorry to hear about that amazing place you had up there burning down, but it's awesome that you've been able to keep up your spirits, keep going to radio stuff. And yeah, I know I haven't seen a lot of you guys in a real long time, including you, Bob, but I hope you and your family are well, and I'm doing well down here in San Diego. So yeah, have a good day.
Thank you, Collie. Good to see you again.
Great to see you, Collie. Thanks for checking in. I really appreciate it. Okay, I'll try to go fast on this, and just a few tips and tricks for the ARRL Sweepstakes contest. A little bit about the what to do if you have a modest station, a bigger station, some do's and don'ts, and how to handle common situations that come up in the contest. Try to make it a little easier for you. This is mostly focused on CW because that's what I do. So I'll let others talk about the best way to do it on phone. So if you have a small station, maybe low power or just tri-bander and wires and maybe 500 watts, your strategy for making the most queues in sweepstakes and having the most fun is to call CQ whenever you can, and you know, S&P when you can't, But use your band scope, your waterfall display, find those holes in the band. That will help quite a bit. Suppose you run across a VY2 or a KP2 or some multiplier, and there's a huge pileup, and you've called 3 times and you can't get through, but you really want to work that multiplier. Don't forget to use your XIT control. If everybody calls on the same frequency, because everybody's clicking on the same spots, and everything's very calibrated these days, there's going to be nothing but a solid tone in the other operator's ear. But if you use your XIT and call a little off frequency, I think you'll find that you'll get through, because a weak station can often do that. You want to generally try to CQ on the highest band that's open. Hopefully 15 meters will open a little bit for us. You definitely want to be there as a low power station for the duration of that opening, and then maybe go down to other bands sooner than the rest of the crowd while you can still get a frequency. And with skimmers these days, remember, you will get spotted if you call CQ, but you have to call CQ the right way, and I'll show that in a second. Skimmers will spot you, and the multis will find you, as well as the assisted ops. There's quite a few assisted ops in sweepstakes. Again, for the modest station, I would try to go above 050 or below 0.025, even below in the extra band to call CQ on CW, because the other frequencies tend to be crowded. I hear somebody who's not muted. You do want to try to search them. This is kind of a trick that I prefer to do, and that is the S&P from top of the band down rather than bottom up. It seems like most guys like to tune up in direction, and you'll end up bidding, fighting over the same S&Pers on every QSO if you do that. So I tend to try to do the opposite of what most people are doing, so I avoid that. And if I see somebody doing the same thing I'm doing, I'll start tuning the other direction. So if you have a big station and you can hold a frequency, do call CQ as much as you can in this contest. And hopefully you can set up for SO2R. 2-band simultaneous interlay CQing does not work so well in this contest. But searching and pouncing on the second radio, it can be very hard to hold your run frequency when the exchange is so long if the guy on the second radio is super weak and slow, and it's tough. But try to find a frequency and hold it, and I'll talk a little bit about how to do that if you can. I really prefer 500 hertz CW filters, not 400. There's a lot of guys who call off frequency. I use my RIT a lot in sweepstakes to call to find those guys who are calling me. And the big guns should try to stick to the meat of the band between 30 and 50 if they can. If you're really serious for 24 hours, you want to make the maximum score. I have found that it does help a great deal to wake up for the East Coast sunrise. So a lot of early risers on Sunday do get up and turn on the radio and work a few sweepstakes QSOs on 40 and 20, well, especially 40 before sunrise. And they're very loud at that time and easy to work. And then as dawn approaches, you'll find 20 meters starts to open up to the Caribbean. You got to be prepared for that slow Sunday. It's a normal thing. It happens in every sweepstakes. The rate's going to drop. Saturday will be a lot more fun. So you want to leave yourself some off time just to avoid the tedium and maybe eat something and take a little break on Sunday. So I like to leave some off times for Sunday. And the last hour of the contest is usually very unproductive for me. So I'll at least take the last 30 minutes off and maybe the last hour or 45 minutes, depending on how things have gone. You do want to look for those rare mults Sunday morning. These tend to show up for me first thing Sunday if I'm missing them and I haven't got them yet overnight. So they generally may not answer your CQs if they're the big guns who are calling CQ. So a couple of quick do's and don'ts. You do want to call CQ a lot. It will help your score the most. And you don't want to work the dupes in this contest. In my opinion, it's really going to waste a lot of time, especially if it turns out to be a weak station who can't send and he's repeating everything 5 times and then you find out it's a dupe. You've just wasted a lot of time, and maybe people that were in line waiting have gone away. You really got to get every part of the exchange correct, or you're going to lose the QSO in the log checking. They do a very thorough job of log checking in sweepstakes. So if you have any doubt about the number received or the section or anything like that, just ask for a fill, and I'll explain how to do that in a minute. And pre-fills are helpful to see what is expected to be sent by the other operator, but don't rely on it too much because people do change their check just to mess with the pre-fillers from year to year. So you really got to copy what's sent. And if you're in doubt, sometimes if it doesn't match the pre-fill, I will ask them to repeat it. I like to send pretty fast when the pileup allows it and everybody's answering, there's somebody there after every QSO. The faster you can go, the better. But then you got to slow down the second day for those folks who really prefer a slower speed. And you also have to realize that a lot of guys are using code readers these days and they can't really copy anything other than an exchange or your call sign or a CQ. But if you send too slow, then, you're going to be like the last one somebody wants to answer because it's going to take a long time to work you. So send as fast as you can or match the speed of the CQer at least. And if you really want them to slow down, just send QRS, and any good operator before, send your call and send QRS, and any good operator will slow down and send the exchange for you that way. You have to send the exchange in the proper order. There's a few guys who just can't figure out how to program their old memory keys to send the sweepstakes exchange, and you have to be prepared that some guys are going to send it in the wrong order, and you just have to deal with that and get them in the right fields. I do not recommend sending the other station's call when you're giving an SNP exchange, unless there's any confusion about who you came back to or who you're calling. I'll show you an example of that in a second. In contests like Sprint, it's required to send both call signs as part of the exchange, and it's sometimes necessary to do it, but most of the time it's just a waste of time to send the CQer's call sign to him when you're answering his exchange. So here's an example. You want to send your call sign twice in a row the same way so that it's spotted by the skimmers. SS is a little faster, but it doesn't quite punch through like a CQ does. At the end of an exchange, I'll send TU in my call, or if I think there's someone waiting, I'll just send TU. And you can kind of get away with not sending your call thank you quite a bit if there's people waiting. This works better when you're in Nevada and a rear multiplier because your call sign is part of the exchange, so you are identifying. So how to send an efficient exchange, here's an example. I'll call CQ with my call sign twice. N6RO just has to send his call sign once. I come back N6RO and send the exchange in this order, number 123 Bravo, my call, and so on. However, notice that I'm not sending number or TU or K or anything extraneous. Just the exchange is the only thing that's necessary. Ken being a good op, he just has to send his number and everything else. No NR, no calls, doesn't have to send N6TB, none of that's required. And if I need a fill, I'll send it. Now, I may make a slight exception to this if I were N6RO and calling a station who's a little slow and a little unsure. I might send the R and then the number just to have a little sync point there, because sometimes when you start right off with the number and nothing before it, the guy's Vox hasn't dropped out yet or something, and he missed the first part of the number. And then just TU in my call, and that's the end of the exchange, and hopefully there's somebody else who'll call next. But if not, just send CQ again. You notice I'm avoiding sending DE, NR, QSL, TU, anything other than what I've shown there, although the R is helpful sometimes. So you're always going to need a fill in this contest, and this is sort of the order that I like to ask for fills. What's your number? Or better yet, if I think the guy can't send very well, he's having a lot of trouble sending his number, I'll send what I copied, NR64 question mark, and then all he has to do is send the letter C for confirm or QSL or OK, instead of having to make him send his whole number again. This is the hardest one to get a guy to fill in. I don't send PREC for precedence because that sounds like SEC, and then they'll send the wrong thing. So just PRE seems to work. If that doesn't work, class, power, or sometimes I'll say what I think he sent, AAA question mark, is that what you sent? Or number 2Q, I'll send both things together, try to get that precedence in there. And if they just can't figure it out, scratch the QSO and move on. If you need to fill on the year, check question mark seems to work pretty well, or year, or CK55 question mark, send again what you thought you copied and see if it can just confirm it. It has a lot of advantages because it gets you holding the frequency instead of the slow weak station taking too much time to repeat everything, and you might lose your run frequency. section or state, or if it's Michigan, I'll send MI question mark. If I can't tell if it's Michigan or Mississippi, or maybe QTH, but as soon as they hear the letter Q, a lot of guys turn the knob. They think you're sending QSL or something. So I try to not use QTH much. And if I need the whole exchange again or multiple parts of it, instead of if the guy's loud and I'm not going to lose my frequency, I'll just send again question mark or just a single question mark. And again, just number one, okay, if they don't send a number and you're trying to get the exchange out of them. But in CW, it's kind of hard to get an exchange out of someone who isn't in the contest, but it can be done, especially if they're a nice rare multiplier like Nebraska or something. So to avoid dupes, you want to send your call. And this is my favorite way of telling a dupe that he's a dupe. I just find it works really, really well because the dit at the end, or the letter EE, which you can program, will indicate you're done. Thanks, bye, who's next? And hopefully N6RL will say sorry or dit or something, and the next guy will call right in. I don't like to send B4 because that sounds like I'm starting to send the number 64, or dupe, which is too hard to copy and not expected. So just that's how I tell a dupe to go away. Now, if at that point they say no or can't find it or something like that, then I will work them. I'm not going to argue endlessly. It's just the first time through, I will say you're a dupe. And if they say I lost it, or a dog ate my QSO, then you go ahead and work them again and log them as a dupe. But if you have time and it's slow and you really don't want to work the dupes, you can send something like this: your number 125, is that okay? And then they'll go, oops, sorry, I had N6TU logged instead of N6TB, and that's why the problem was there. Now, defending a frequency, you call CQ and all of a sudden you hear QRL question mark, probably because I just tried to work somebody on the second radio. So then I'll just CQ right on top of that, or as an answer to that question, and hopefully somebody will call, or maybe the guy who sent QRL. But if he then starts calling CQ on my frequency, or maybe just a 200 hertz high or 200 or 300 hertz low or something like that, I'll move my second VFO down there. I'll maybe, if I need to work him, I'll just start to work him as if I had called CQ. And then maybe he'll send question mark and I'll start to work him again, and then he'll work me and I'll get the frequency back. Or sometimes if he's real insistent, I'll just go down a few hundred and say, frequencies in use, please QSY, and then to start CQing. And don't fight too long over a frequency, but if you've been there a while and clearly this guy bumped his VFO knob and didn't know what he was doing, you need to let them know, and that's how you can defend a frequency. So that's sort of the end of the talk, but I'll open it up for any questions. Just unmute and fire away. Nope. How much time did I take? Ooh, a little longer than 10 minutes, I think.
Hey, Bob, I have a quick question for you, if I might ask.
Chris.
It's an odd one, but for the last 10 years, I've been sending my exchange as a late bloomer as 07 with no cuts. Should I continue to do that, or?
Don't send cut numbers ever in sweepstakes.
Right, I never do.
Now, if you do get on the contest really late, and I would never send leading zeros, I didn't mention that. However, if there is a time when it's appropriate to do that, and that is if everybody's sending 3-digit numbers and you're just logging on Sunday and sending 001, you might send
for the check. For the check.
No, for my check. My check is 07.
I'm sorry. I thought you were sending number 7. Okay. So for check 07, always 07, never DOS7.
Just stuck with it. Okay.
But the QSO number being low, then you might want to send a couple leading zeros when your single digit numbers, just so you don't throw off the guys. Any other questions?
Yeah, K6XX, the other question, Bob.
Yeah, I can only see the bottom half of your head, but go ahead.
Okay. So as a small search and pounce guy on a small system, I'll have guys say to me, what's your check and precedence, or what's your this and that? And I have no problem. What I have a hard time with is when they piece it out, all 4, it would have been easier if they didn't have any of it, just to say again. And I'm wondering if you have any comments about that.
Well, yeah, if someone calls me that's really weak, I'm going to ask for one piece at a time because I want to hold the frequency.
Oh, I see.
The longer that somebody weak is sending over and over again their exchange, the more likely it is I'm going to lose my run frequency. So
I see.
That's why I will ask for it piece by piece.
Opposed to just again for the all 4.
Right. If it's a loud station, I'm not worried about losing the frequency. I'll just say again.
I see. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
But if it's a loud station, hopefully I don't have to say again.
Makes total sense. Appreciate it.
Hey,
Why
Bob,
no-
this-
Why
Bob,
no?
this is- go ahead.
Why no cut numbers?
Because most people aren't expecting them in sweepstakes. It just means somebody's probably going to ask for fills. I especially not in the check. You really don't expect to hear a cut number in the check. In a number, I mean, I can handle it. Cut numbers in a QSO number, but generally it's not used by domestic guys, so it's not expected. And at least to some
Another
extent.
reason for not using cuts is that sending the full number helps a lot if the other guy's weak or you get static crash, something like that, because it really fills in the timing of the number.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's just a contest of a lot of letters and numbers in the exchange, so you don't want to confuse somebody any more than they are. I mean, you want to make sure that the format's consistent.
Correct.
Some people automatically ask for a fill when they get a cut number, even if they copied it correctly. Just don't like it when you do that.
Bob, I noticed in your examples for CQ, you didn't have SS at the end of the CQ after the call.
Yep.
Do you agree that it's counterproductive to send SS at the end?
Yes, although sometimes I'll do it when it's not, a DX station starts calling me and I'm saying, I'm not going to work DX in this contest. Although if they insist, I'll just send a signal report and try to move on. It happens a lot when you're in Nevada. But I don't like sending test or SS at the end of a CQ because that's like a sync pulse. It means the whole pileup's going to call at the same time. And if you just send your call at the end and kind of pause, then people call you a different timing. And I really want to hear that first letter of a VE that's calling, because that could be a multiplier. So I don't want everybody to call all at the same time. And that's why I never send test or SS at the end, or almost never. Although when things are real slow, or if somebody's, trying to take over my frequency or something, I'm going to make the CQ as long as possible and maybe add SS and get everybody to call at once.
Bob,
Bob.
The shortcut for dupe, QSO dit.
Yep.
Is that a well-known convention?
No, it's something I came up with myself that works really well. And I don't even know if you can program that into N1MM, but you can program it into WinTest.
You can. I just didn't. It's the first time I've heard of that. So if
I'm sharing one of my little secrets, so you're welcome.
Okay, thanks.
Try it. You'll like it.
Okay.
So
You just
Bob,
answered
do you?
my question? Because I was going to ask you, are you programming? You program all of those, like your question, your repeats, and your logging, and just hit an F button for that, or is that?
That's a good question. And this is going on longer than my allotted time. Sorry, Dave, but I do have a button program to resend each part of my exchange, so that I use Alt 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the 5 different parts of the exchange when I want to resend a number, or just the precedence, or just the section. But for asking for fills, I tend to use the paddles.
Do you? Okay.
Hey Bob, when do you?
If I get lost on the keyboard when I have that, seems to have that stuff there. It's like, oh, where was that NR question? And
yeah, I do have that on a key. Actually, I do have NR question on F6 key.
Hey Bob, what time do you normally give it up? Like Sunday morning or Saturday night?
When the rate starts to really get low, and it seems to be about midnight these days.
Okay.
Our time. Okay.
Okay, well, thanks, Bob. That was really, really great. I'm wondering if anyone wants to jump in and give a couple of pointers for sideband, although CW is first, right? So I guess we could.
Mm-hmm. We have another meeting between the two.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, we can wait for that.
Hello.
Yeah. Ken, did you want?
Yeah.
I was going to just call on you. Do you wanted to throw out a few things?
Yeah, sure. I agree with all of the ideas by Bob, although that dit is new to me also. Maybe I should talk about strategy overall. When I was part of the leadership team, maybe 20, 30 years ago in sweepstakes, the emphasis was butt in chair. It's an endurance contest, like most of them are, except sprints. And the only way to achieve the score that you might plan on, or to help the club, or whatever your goal is, you got to be in the chair. I'm finding that pretty hard these days, but I did it last night. And the strategy was sort of covered. I like the idea of the East Coast sunrise. I've been doing it for 50 some years since I moved to California. And it actually is longer. You can start at 2:30 our time and start picking up casuals from New England. And 40 meters these days is open quite late. You can still make cues there at 9 o'clock in the morning, if you're SO2R, that is. We had a lively conversation on the RO Zoom meeting, which we do every Thursday night, about accuracy. And I think it should be a subject that the club covers sometime. Bob, K3EST, has a nice summary of the things to worry about, but strive for accuracy, and that will help your score and the club score. Rate sheets from previous years can really help you plan your strategy. You should have a plan before you start, and but be flexible and change with the band conditions and so forth. That's about all I can say from here.
K6XX, you have two comments.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, one of them is, for whatever it's worth, this year, normally on CW, there's a time zone change on our clocks. This year, it's the week before, so there's no time zone change. So that's for whatever that's worth. The other question is, are we going to have, and will it be posted on the reflector, rendezvous times and frequencies? I find them very helpful.
We can work that out. Yeah.
Thanks.
Just remember, in sweeps, bolts are not per band, so it's work once ever. So having different bands and rendezvous points is not necessarily as helpful as it sounds for anything but getting cues that are otherwise inaccessible.
It's a low band rally for the NCCC members.
Yeah. Yep. So like mostly just 160 then.
Well, what about the 80?
80.
Yeah.
80. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Bill.
Actually,
right.
That brings up a question. Is 160 viable on sweepstakes? Yeah, that's what I thought.
All right. Dave, I'll throw it back to you, and let's get to Ron here.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks everybody, and yeah, we're looking forward to all the upcoming contests. Yeah. So I'm gonna introduce Ron. I appreciate you being patient, and the fact that we're starting a little late. So Ron Castro is completely, as I understand it, moved to his operation to being remote, to a station that he owns and manages himself. So he's a perfect person to talk about the subject. And he uses the RCForb software, which I'm not familiar with, but I've heard of and I'm very interested in learning more about, and also the RemoteRig. So I'm going to turn it over to Ron, and go ahead and share your screen now.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you can hear me okay. Thank you, Dave. And I also want to thank Gary, NA60, for inviting me to do the presentation. I think I have to click the share button, and there it is. Let's get all this started on here. And let me give myself a pointer. All right, there we go. I was not present at the meeting where Chris N6WM gave his presentation on the Flex Maestro system. It's a very good system. It's one that I had considered early on, and decided to go with Elecraft for a lot of different reasons that I'll explain a little bit later on in the presentation this afternoon. First of all, I think that remote operation is one of the fastest growing areas of ham radio. Other than FT8, I think this is something that's been pretty important for a lot of people for a lot of reasons. First of all, tower regulations, CCNRs. We've probably all come head to head with those over the years. We have an aging population, moving to smaller homes and also to assisted living situations, and in some cases even nursing homes. People still want to enjoy their favorite hobby And about the only way that they can do that is through some sort of remote operation. Just can't get out and tend those towers anymore like they did when they were younger. We also have an availability of off-the-shelf affordable equipment that was not available back 10, 15, 20 years ago when people were first starting to think about remote operations. There were a few that were done. There was one, I believe, was done over in Oakland. Perhaps I think it was at one of the marinas over there. Somebody had one, but that required a lot of very special computer programming, hardware that was not easy to acquire and was fairly expensive. And I don't know what the reliability or the bandwidth was. Far better internet these days than we've had in the past. It's less expensive, wider bandwidth so that we can send more data back and forth. And it's available in more places than it ever was, including wireless internet, which is a component that I do use on my system. And by the way, my system is 100% remote. The only thing I have here at the house is pretty much receiving equipment. I have some transmitting equipment, but I never use it anymore. It's just largely for skimmers and for SWLing and all of that. One of the other important reasons is avoiding of local interference in both directions. A little bit of a confession. For years, my XYL forbid me from doing phone contests from the house. Now, she told me that was because I was so loud. It was distracting. She couldn't sleep at night. And I am loud. I'm a former top 40 disc jockey. But I found out after I went remote, she came clean as to why she didn't want me to do phone contests. And the reason why was that the neighbors could understand that it was me. They could hear enough of the sideband signal to figure out that I was the one causing the interference. With CW and RTTY, they weren't so sure, so they didn't bother us. But they would come knock on the door, and my wife was just mortified. I mean, she wanted to crawl under the sidewalk when that happened. So I was not able to operate until I finally went remote and finally got back into doing sideband contests. Of course, remote or interference goes in both directions, not just what you cause your neighbors, but what they cause you. With solar arrays, switch mode power supplies, everything that's out there these days, you get a lot of local interference, and moving out to a remote location is one way to minimize that. Vacation and travel operation. I do travel a fair bit. I go to Redding, Chico, Sacramento, places like that where the company I'm with has radio stations to do engineering work. And I like to take my equipment with me. And all I have to take really is a very small amount, and I can operate the station by remote wherever I am. I haven't done it, but they say it is possible to sit on the beach in Maui and operate your station from there. That's something I'd like to do someday, but I can. Another operation, the reason why you want to go remote is to operate a DX station from your home QTH. You use the DX call sign, you get credit for being a DX multiplier. It's also good for folks here on the West Coast that feel the East Coast has an unfair advantage over them. They can operate an East Coast station from here in the West Coast without going out there and make more QSOs in Europe, which can increase their scores. Finally, you have the opportunity to operate a super station, a multi-multi. With COVID-19, that's really about the only way you can operate multi-multis safely these days. But we can get world-class operators together with world-class stations, and that's one of the good things that we can do with remote operation. Here's a look at my remote site. I'll give you a quick rundown of what it is and where. This is about 5 miles away from my home. I was one of those people that was affected by CCNRs and local tower regulations. I had an existing tower that had been grandfathered in Petaluma long before they had any kind of tower regulations, but I couldn't put up anything else. So I went searching and found this nearby ranch. It was almost, we would call it near line of sight. And so when I originally set it up, I had 900 megahertz, a very narrow bandwidth 900 megahertz link point to point to send the audio and control information for the station. The owner's home is down here, and I made a deal with them on the phone really quickly, rather easily, to rent some space. Up here is a garage. It's 2 stories high, has big roll-up doors, 3 two-story roll-up doors on the thing. And there's also an office complex, and it's an area where I put a rack with my equipment in it. Now, initially, as I said, I had a 900 megahertz. It was up on the tower, was able to shoot over top of the ranch and to my home here in the east side of Petaluma. And that worked out fair, the way I had things set up before. When this started life, I had an Orion 10Tech, or 10Tech Orion 2, and operated that by remote. And I had my band scope at my local home QTH. I used software by Carl, N4PY, which had a neat little facility on it that you could operate an SDR from home, use that as a band scope, and that's what I did. And it was set up nicely. I could click on the band scope, move the radio, move everything else, and have all that done by remote. When I started to see the Ten-Tech was beginning to go downhill, they were looking like they were in financial trouble. I started looking around for a different system and started looking into both the Maestro and Elecraft as possibilities. On this site here, when I finally decided to go with Elecraft, and I needed to set up something that had enough bandwidth to cover a band scope at the remote site, I realized I had to get internet. The internet ends here, Comcast Xfinity, at the owner's home. This being the remote location, I had to get a signal from there to here. I thought about 5 megahertz, which I did eventually set up, but I could not shoot directly. The land rises as you go here, and these big buildings are chicken coops. This was a working chicken ranch. At any given time, they would have as many as 150,000 chickens in those coops on the property. But they're big and tall, and they were in the way of the building back here. So I ran an outdoor Cat 5 run along the side of a fence here, set up another one over on a fence over here, and ran cable back into the building. And so that's now what I use to support connection with Comcast Xfinity. And it's pretty good speed. I can get about 75 megabits down, and about 10 megabits up on the system. And when I don't have trouble with Xfinity, it works well. Have been having problems with them, so that has been a bit of a problem. Let's see here. Next, here's what the tower looks like. That's a Step-IR DB42 at the top, which covers 80 through 6 meters. It's got a rotatable dipole on 80 and 60 meters. It's 3 elements on 40 and 30 meters, 5 elements on 20 through 10, and 8 elements on 6 meters. So it's a pretty viable antenna. The tower itself, it's a 70-foot Tri-X. It was originally a Tri-X, and in fact, it was originally owned by the owner of Tri-X. Some of you may recognize the name Frank Clement, W6KPC. He was the founder and owner of Tri-X. This was one of his personal towers. Originally was one of those Tri-X Sky Needles. It was 100 feet and had a top 30-foot section that rotated. I knew I'd never get a permit to go 100 feet, plus with the extra wind load of the DB36, I decided to have Carl Tazjian, who owns the company now, cut the thing down and refurbish it completely when I put it up several years ago. And so far it's worked out pretty well. HFTAs on this site are on my website, n6ie.com. And kind of an interesting thing that with this 70-foot tower and the DB42, to get the same signal in Europe over flatland, I would have to have a DB42 over a DB42 at 60 and 120 feet. So you don't need to be on the edge of a cliff or a super steep hill in order to have the takeoff angle reduced by the local terrain, and that's worked out very well from this site. It's also very quiet. When I pointed out toward Asia, the noise level is so low that when I'm operating CW on 40 meters, I very often have to use the preamp on the K3 just to bring the noise level up to the AGC. So that's a very, very quiet location. Pointing toward Australia, there is not a single man-made thing between me and about 1.25 miles away. It's just completely devoid of any power lines, buildings, anything like that that might cause a problem. Inside the garage, this is the look at the equipment. It's in a rack. It's a computer rack. Actually found this on Craigslist. A guy over in Castro Valley was going to start a computer company of some sort, surplus this thing when it didn't happen. Racks like this can cost as much as $3,500 when they're new. I was very lucky. I got this for about $250 and a trailer rental to bring it home. From the top, we can see on here, this is the Green Heron rotator controller, which is remotable, which is why I use that. Over here, this is the Step-IR controller, the SD100. I used to have an ACOM 2000A at the site. When this picture was taken, I still had the control panel for it, which I had rigged specially so that I could have some controls that weren't available on some of the software that I had to use on a hardware basis. This is N8LP. Larry Phipps makes a lot of good equipment. This is his 1,000 watt, actually 2,500 watt precision watt meter, which I have. I don't really need it with the remote setup I have, but it works. This you'll all recognize, KPA 1500. That's what I use for the amp now. It is very remoteable. Here's the K3 down here in the back, the shack computer that I use for the remote desktop. We can see Bob N6 TV, one of his Y boxes up here, which works nicely. Here's a remote monitor. This monitor is shown in my shack, and this is what I use for control of all of the equipment. Down below here is actually 450 megahertz equipment, broadcast equipment. For a while, I was having trouble with my 900 megahertz circuit, and so I used that for the audio coming from the from the operation here down to the local shack. And down below here, we see the power supply for the KPA 1500. This is what the shack looks like at home. You can see there's 3 monitors. Over on the right monitor here, you can see the remote desktop for the shack. This is what I have running local software. And you can see here I'm running N1MM. And also the RCForb software gives you a computer presentation of the K3. But I also have the K30 Mini, which is a very important part of the station because I like to have that tactile feel and to have the knobs and all of that just available. The third screen, and all of these are hooked to the same computer, can be used for internet for part of the N1MM and other things that I need. A little close up on the operation here, you can get a better shot of the K30 Mini on here and what the screens look like. You can tell I'm left-handed. I have the key on the left and the mouse on the left. That's where that all operates. And also, if you happen to look at this picture up here, back in 1977, that was me. And I was a disc jockey in Honolulu. And it's funny how things, history repeats itself. They say history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. In that case, probably it does. On the wall here, you can't see it, but there's a sign that says swine flu information. So pandemics are nothing new. We've had to deal with them for a little while. This is a close-up of the computer screen that I get to see. This software up here is for the rotator, PST Rotator AZ. Excellent piece of software. Even if you're not running remote, this is probably a good one to have. There's a number of things you can do. You can just punch in the direction you want to go here by compass number, or you can just click on the screen over here where you want the beam to point. It's got presets. You can put in a prefix over here. It'll automatically figure out the right direction. Or if you have a locator, you can just put in the locator number and it'll go directly on here. This is the LP100, N8LP's software that remote controls. It actually isn't a remote control. It's on the local desktop only. It doesn't have a server client type of a setup. But this is pretty good for letting me know on a precision basis what my power is like. I can also read the impedance, phase, resistance, and the reactance on the thing. Like most of these, though, it doesn't tell you whether the reactance is positive or negative, but it just gives you an idea if there is reactance in the circuit. This is the KPA 1500 remote control. This does have remote client software capabilities. I haven't used them yet. I just use it on the remote desktop, but it doesn't necessarily have to run on a remote desktop to remote control the KPA 1500. This control here, this box is part of the PST rotator. It gives me control over the step IR. Functions like the 180-degree bidirectional, or if necessary to calibrate or to go home. I can do that all by the remote desktop here and control that. I haven't found any whole lot of other software that allows that integrates it as well. It also lights up a red dot right about here when the antenna is tuning, and I know not to run high power. I do have the switching circuit so that the amp is switched out when it's tuning. This is some more of Larry's equipment, N8LP. I use this for switching. You can see this is the ACOM. I could also read status. I could tell when the ACOM was turned on or off. I could also start it remotely from here. This I now use to start the K3. The K3 does need a remote relay in order to start when you're operating it remotely, and that gives me the opportunity to do that. I can also switch to the 160-meter tuner at the bottom of the tower when I need to do that. You can see it was a warm day when I took this picture. It was 97 degrees in the garage. Fortunately, we haven't had heat like that in a while. This down here is the remote band scope. This runs real time on the remote desktop and runs by reading the IF output from the K3. And of course, the K3 has to get information. It does get information from the RCForb software. I'll explain how all that works in the next couple of frames. On the top, is it real or is it Memorex? This is what I see on the screen from the RCForb software, specifically for the K3. Good thing about the RCForb software, and if any of you want to use it, it doesn't necessarily have to have Elecraft equipment attached to it. They designed it largely for people who wanted to share their stations on the internet with many other people. I don't because of the complexity of my station, and I can keep mine private, but you can have, for instance, someone with an ICOM share their radio on the internet to anyone that wants to do it. If you've got the K30 Mini, which is a picture of this down here, that also communicates with the RCForb client software. So that is a direct integration of the system so that I can use either one of these two. I can click a button if I want to tune up here, any of these controls, or I can actually use the buttons which are identical to a K3. In fact, even this discussion on here shows it's an Elecraft K3S transceiver. It's not. This is the K30 Mini. They just happen to use the same piece of hardware for both of those. Now I'm going to give you an idea of how all of this is hooked together, how it integrates. And in the next couple of screens, you're going to see two sets of icons. One is for hardware, that's the blue rectangle. For the software, you'll see the oval tan colored icon. And so it'll be a little harder to confuse the two of those. This is what the whole thing looks like on top. Now, there's so much going on here, I figured it would be very hard to explain this unless we did it piece by piece. So let me start just with the K3. That lives out at the remote. And again, if you're setting up a system like this, you don't necessarily need an Elecraft K3. A lot of other manufacturers will work. I use the RemoteRig not for control of the K3 because that's done through the RCForb software. I do that for the audio, for CW, and for PTT keying on it. I just like to do it that way. Being a broadcaster, I've kind of got a bias about using hardware codecs. They seem to work better than trying to tax the CPU on the local computers. And so I have all of that running separate. Over here is, let me see, my little screen is in the way, the RCForb server software. This is a server client system, which hooks up to the K3. It looks at the K3 through its RS-232 connection and a USB converter, which lives on the local computer at the remote station. The K3 talks to directly the KPA 1500, and of course, there's also the RF connection to that. And I can control the KPA 1500, see what it's up to by remote desktop software that lives. You can also run that controls through the RCForb server. I just haven't set that up because I had this already in operation at the remote site. The KPA 1500 then looks to the LP100, and then you have the LP100 control software, which we saw on the remote desktop before. One of the good things about the RCForb server software is that it has a remote COM port on the thing. The remote COM port then allows me to connect to LP Bridge. LP Bridge then gives me many remote COM ports. In fact, you can have as many as a dozen, as I recall. And it's very important to have those for all of the things that have to know what frequency the K3 is on. One of those things is the step IR, needs to know what frequency so it knows where to tune. Step IR also talks to the PST rotator AZ. As we saw on the screen, we have the remotes on there, and so that looks to the stepper SDA 100 for its control. Also, the green heron then looks to the PST rotator AZ. That's where they all communicate and where we see all that information that shows up. Now, for that band scope that I saw on there, NAP3 is what it's called, which Eric from Elecraft was quick to tell me stands for not a P3, which is true, it's not. It's just a piece of software. And to make it work, we need an SDR. The SDR, again, looks at the 8 megahertz output of the K3, goes through a USB sound card, which is an Asus U7, and then into the NAP3. So it knows what frequency the K3 is on. Needs to know that to show all the calibrations that we saw on that. Also, the LP Bridge can run N1MM if I want to run that direct on the remote desktop at the remote location. There's a good reason for that. If you ever tried to run a CW on a remote system running over the public internet, you're going to find it has troubles, especially with long exchanges in a contest like SS on CW. Every dozen or so QSOs, you will occasionally have one DIT or DA that doesn't make it, and you've got to give the report completely from the beginning. Wastes a lot of time, gets very frustrating. And so to get around that, I run N1MM on CW contests on the remote desktop and run it only from there. I run it through the microham router, runs through the microham keyer. So these communicate using WinKey format. And then from here, it's just direct relay closure into the K3 to make that operate. Back at the Home Shack, we won't do things one at a time because it's a lot simpler setup. The computer that you saw, the 3 screens, that's this here. I contact the RemoteRig for audio back and forth on here. The audio goes to the mixer console. Of course, this also goes back to the remote site, so we have input and output from the remote. Locally to the mixer console, we have the microphone input, headphones and speaker. The paddles operate over here. These are paddles for when I'm sending locally. So if I'm running N1MM at the remote site and I have to ask for a fill, do something quick on the paddles, I can do that from here. When I'm running N1MM locally at the shack at home, it talks to the shack computer. When I'm not running N1MM, when I'm just running DX, Logic 9 is the program I use for that. It talks and can also control all the equipment at the remote site. And of course, WSJTX also has a remote interface that it can work on. RCForb client brings in all the controls for the K3 as it appears on the computer, as well as the K30 Mini that goes through there. I view everything using VNC Remote Desktop. That's free remote desktop software. I can also use some of the other types of remote desktop softwares that are out there, and occasionally use them from time to time. And then PST Rotator AZ also runs on the local shack computer. It communicates with N1MM, so you have the Alt-J function. As long as you get a call sign up in the box, or at least a prefix, you hit Alt-J, and it automatically points the antenna for you. All of that works together. Now, I do have plans for an upgrade in the future, and I think like many of the people on the call here today, a K4. When will it come, though? So I'm hoping soon. So Eric and Wayne, please, 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 please. I would like to get my hands. I'm in the second group, by the way, and I'm expecting it maybe, if I'm lucky, maybe at Christmas time. So we will see if that happens to come to pass. Now, when I get the K4, the first setup that I'm going to do is going to eliminate at the remote site a lot of the software that you saw over here. I won't need the RCForb software because this goes directly over the internet. It also handles the audio in and out, so that eliminates needing the RemoteRig hardware that was used on there. And a lot of the things that I had in between the remote comm site, or the remote comms that I had on there, no longer necessary. So it's just the N1MM running the through the router, through the microham keyer, the KPA 1500, the watt meter, and the controls for that all over on there, and then the stepper down to the PST rotator. All of these can go directly into the K4 because it has multiple COM port outputs right on the K4, rather than having to create them through software, which was what we did before. Now, back at the shack, we'll be able to get rid of the RemoteRig that was up here, run the audio directly out of the shack computer. Everything else remains pretty much the same except for the paddles. And I assume there'll be some way of connecting that in using a USB input. That's yet to be determined. Now, eventually, I've been promised by the folks at Elecraft, they will have a K40 Mini. And when that happens, then we can put that into the mix, get rid of any of the other control features that were in there, and do that directly into the audio, paddles directly into there. Everything else pretty much remains the same. Clicking over to the shack, and I would like to mention to the folks of Elecraft that might be listening, it would make my station a perfect site to beta test the K40 Mini. So when that comes out, I'm kind of hoping that I'll get in there. In fact, I even have a place reserved for it, and there's where it will go. And so that's my my future plans on that. And with that, that's the explanation of how the remote station operates. And we can throw it open for any questions, comments, anything that anyone might have on that. We had no questions, no comments.
I just want to say, really nice job there, Ron. It was a very nice, concise presentation and excellent audio.
Yeah, sorry, earlier I prevented people from unmuting themselves, so that's
Oh,
fixed
that was
now.
okay.
Yeah, sorry about
Thank you.
that.
Lots of questions. Go ahead, Gary.
No question. Just thanks to Ron. Good job.
Okay, thank you.
Ron, Bob, N6TV, terrific job. I get a lot of questions about remoting, and I'm going to forward them all to you from now on.
Sometimes I have a problem remembering how I set this whole thing up. I say.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's good to have a diagram.
Yeah, the diagrams are really good. And I did want to say a couple of questions. First, the remote software, VNC remote, does that require port forwarding to set up?
You can use it. Yeah, it does require port forwarding. It defaults to port 5900. It's a good idea to move it off of that because every hacker in the world knows to try to hack that port. And I had one instance where I was almost hacked in a commercial situation, so I've moved mine off to a secret port that nobody knows.
W6CZ.
Yep.
First of all, Bob, they have a BNC Connect service now that you subscribe to for about $60 a year that avoids the port forwarding. I started using that. And Ron, I'm the guy that built the station in Alameda that you were talking about.
Oh, really? Okay, at the Berkeley Marina.
Yeah, it was in Alameda.
Oh, in Alameda. Okay, all right.
Yeah, and I put a link actually in the comments to an article that covers that station and a subsequent station, which is where I'm located now and in the process of getting back on the air remote.
Okay.
So
yeah, that was an inspiration to many. That the station in Alameda. That was something good. But those were back in the days before we had all this wonderful off-the-shelf equipment and software.
Well, actually, there wasn't much off. Everything was pretty much off the shelf. There was only one specialized software we used for tuning. It was a real simple thing on the keyboard, the up, down, right, left buttons. That was the push to talk and up and down tuning. Other than that, it was doing very similar to what you're doing. We were using a remote desktop application, and we were using. I can't remember. It was very early contest software, and that was the primary thing that drove it.
Mm-hmm.
So I had some more questions for you, Ron.
Yeah, sure.
So you may still need a method to remotely power up the K4, and the way you're doing it now, you said you had a relay box from N8LP, and of course that'll work on the power on pin and the accessory connector. It'll work the same on the K4, but built into RCForb is a way to power on the K3.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. All of that's been taken care of. You also control the rotator. They've got all sorts of things that are built into it. Since I had this already existing from my Orion 2 setup, I figured I'd just use it, and it was a direct replacement. And of course, the K4 should replace the K3 very easily. There won't be a whole lot of rewiring or reconfiguring or things like that. It should be a very simple way to set it up.
Right, but I don't think you're going to get your K4 by Christmas. Just
because you're like COVID-19 put us all behind in the fires, forest fires, and everything else. I'm sure. So maybe the Easter Bunny.
Can you talk a little bit about you mentioned ACOM? I didn't see any ACOM gear, so I was confused by that.
Right. Yes, I originally had an ACOM 2000A, and it served me well for many, many years. And I decided to go with the KPA 1500. I wanted a solid state. Besides being a contester, I'm a DXer. And how many times has the amp not been turned on, and you have to sit there and wait for, 120 some seconds, 2 solid minutes, 2.5 minutes, I think, before the thing, by that time, the DX is gone. So plus I think the finals were getting a little old. I'm an RTTY contester. I did a lot of that. I still have the original finals, and it's sitting here right next to me, right on the floor next to my foot. At some point, maybe I'll do SO2R from the remote site, and I'll press that amp back into service again.
And why do you, what's this audio console that you're connecting your mic and headphones to the K3?
That's
line out, because then you don't get the stereo function to work right.
Right. Yeah, I'm not using the stereo function on that, but it's a Behringer board. I also use that for commercial voiceover work that I still do here from time to time. But it also allows me to have different audio streams for the headphones that are different from the speakers for receiving, and I can mix in various things that I want to, the computer audio and various things, so I can control the level of that for FT8 or anything that I play off the computer. But it's one of the medium-sized Behringer boards.
Okay, so And you're using the headphone output, not line out from the K3.
Well, actually, I'm bringing the audio in off of the RemoteRig, the hardware RemoteRig codec. So yes, that has a speaker. It's speaker output, which is line level, close enough to it, and that runs into one of the pots on the board, so I can control that. Plus, I have my microphone in. Of course, you have a separate channel for transmit audio, and then you have the receive audio is on a different channel, built in within the Behringer board.
Well, of course, your audio is terrific now. Are you? Is that a CM500 or something fancier?
CM500. No, that's what it is. And
That's
it's
you're
actually
using
it's
now?
not through what I use here. If you can see it on the camera, is the Radio Sport headset. That's my headset of choice. Except for the fact for presentations like this, it has single sideband audio, very narrow. So this sounds much better for a presentation like this.
Great job today.
I'm going
Thank
to
you.
see if I can do something on my screen sharing here. I don't want to.
Ron, can I make a comment while
Sure, go ahead.
while you're bringing that up? It's Chris, N6WM.
Yeah.
I wanted to just make a comment over the last several presentations, and I really appreciated Mark's presentation in the beginning, and I hope you got something out of mine. And I certainly got something out of this one as well. Also, somebody who used to do K3s and then transitioned over to the Flex platform. But one of the things that I wanted to kind of emphasize as an anchor device for all of these remotes so far is the RemoteRig 1258 Mark II. That was a pivotal piece of hardware that really works very well, and it's really kind of super robust and delivers on all of these platforms. So I do kind of want to make a point to kind of emphasize that, because other than that, you're basically setting it up the way you want it, like we always do, right?
Yeah, and you're right. That was a game changer when that came into operation. And in fact, K6VVA is still on here. He did a couple of articles about how not to build a remote station. But the thing that was right that he did right, of course, was the RemoteRig. I guess a little confusing for some folks because you've got RemoteRig, remote hams. Now, remote hams is where that software comes from. And if you download just the client version of that, by the way, anybody can get on with their computer and share some of these remote stations that are available. And then there's also remote ham radio, which is the one where you pay by the minute to use like a big contest station on the East Coast or other types of stations like that. So it gets all a little confusing. But RemoteRig is the Swedish hardware that is sold as part of a package with the K3 Zero Mini, which I use. So that's all part of that that's on there. I looked at the Flex, and I was very interested in it when that first came out. When I first set up the remote operation, the Flex was not available. At least the Maestro was not available, and so it was all still very new at that point, with just the RemoteRig as being the only thing that's out there. And I was one of those people that got invited to that secret meeting at K6TU's home back some years ago. There were about a dozen regional contesters who they thought they really wanted to present this to first. And the owner of Flex came out, and their chief programmer, and also K9CT came out, flew all the way out from Illinois to promote it. And I was interested, but there were a couple of things that bothered me. Some of the questions I asked, the answers were, well, that'll be in a future release of firmware. And I thought, maybe. Plus, as it turned out, K9CT got rid of all his old Elecraft equipment, and that radio you saw there was one of his. He sold it to me at a pretty good discount. So that kind of moved me in the direction of the K3. When I got it, though, it was a little surprising. The K3 Zero Mini will connect to a remote K3, but that's all it'll do. It doesn't have any remote COM ports on the thing locally, so you can't connect it to N1MM. You can't do any of the cool stuff. And finally, I had to discover the RCForb software to be able to do that. Cool thing about RCForb software in the shack, the local one, it has 2 virtual COM ports on it. That's key because I can connect both N1MM and the WSJT-X software as well. Both of them can operate the COM ports, and I can plug in the K3 Zero Mini. And all of that works together. All of it works at the same time. That's something I couldn't do with just the K3 Zero Mini without all of this other software in between. And by the way, if you want to see a list of the software and the hardware A lot of it that I didn't show on the presentation, go to n6ie.com, see a whole lot about the Remote Shack, and you'll see that it requires 55 pieces of hardware and software combined to make this remote station work. Now, that's one thing in favor of the Flex Maestro. Doesn't require all of that. But one thing I do know about operating CW, when I operate with N1MM at the remote operation, I can run true full break-in QSK. And you know how fast full break-in is on a K3. It's excellent, lightning fast. The only way you can do that is if you operate N1MM remotely. And I think there's probably, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, the Flex Maestro hasn't quite solved the problem of true QSK. Am I right on that?
The Flex can do true QSK. The problem is its amplifier infrastructure. You know, paired with a QSK amp, you could probably get away with it pretty good. But the PGXL is not a QSK amp, I think we talked about this last month. It's one of the features that I was most disappointed in. Especially since of all the fantastic features that the amp has as far as being able to operate SO2R with one amplifier. It was really kind of a bummer, but yeah. So yeah, you could do it, but it probably have to put your own infrastructure around it as well. I had one other question for you, Ron. Are you an N1MM at the remote site guy?
I do both. Yeah, I do both.
I'm sorry, because I'm operating SO2R during your presentation. I did my best to try and pay attention, and there's not a lot going on 10 meters, but the JAs are coming in. So do you prefer, do you think in a contest environment, because, you know, I get a lot of, it's almost like a religion thing where some people like to run their logger on their desktop locally at home. Where I'm I'm doing it over VNC. We've got everything out the state. It also helps with the multi-op stuff too, right? In the station. And I prefer to run everything remote. What are your thoughts on the decision-making process?
I do both. For phone and RTTY, I operate with the N1MM in the local shack because it's a little faster. I get a little tiny bit better resolution. But you're seeing how it looks by remote now. In fact, this is the JARTS contest, JARTS, that you're seeing all the RTTY signals on there. And let me see if I can do this. This is actually a remote of the remote. It's all happening on the other computer. This is you're seeing me on my laptop, which is about 2 feet away. But all of
can you share your other screen?
Yeah, let me share this one here. Is that sharing? You're seeing that now?
No, we're seeing the PowerPoint.
Oh, you're still seeing the PowerPoint. Okay, how do I share? Okay, I think I have to share my.
You have to reshare. Yeah, reshare your screen.
Ah, that's what I need. Okay, here we go. This is, I think, it here. Share this. Okay, can you see that?
Much better.
Okay, all right, and then I can I can move around the 3 screens that you saw in the shack. Here's the remote desktop from the computer. A remote of a remote of a remote at this point for those of you watching it on Zoom. But this is the JARTS contest that was that's running right now. So I am running N1MM locally. Let me just pull this down here, and you can see that it's on here. In fact, I've even got the skimmer running. You can see all the stuff on there. I can go to W7RN. It's all operational right there. CW, though, I do run it at the remote desktop. VNC can spread out to give you 2 screens so that I have all of the stuff that you normally see, as well as 1 full screen to devote to N1MM. And of course, I don't need this on here because that's all operating on the local shack computer. So yeah, I can do both. And like I say, by running N1MM on CW from the remote site, I get the experience of the absolute true QSK operation, and I don't have problems with internet dropouts, crashed packets and things like that, screwing up long exchanges on things like SS and otherwise.
Question, Ron.
Yeah.
That Ethernet run that is coming from the street over to your shack. How long is that run?
Let's see. From are you talking about from on the remote site?
Yes.
Okay. There is a run from the street. It's about probably 100 or 200 feet to the owner's property. The owner has the Xfinity modem there. From the Xfinity modem, I have maybe 150 feet of Cat 5, exterior Cat 5, running to a Ubiquiti 5 gigahertz, one of those 5 gigahertz radios. And there's another 5 gigahertz radio on the fence and another 150 feet of a Cat 5 that runs into the garage where it's on there. So it covers about a quarter of a mile by 5 gigahertz. And the radios are very inexpensive. I want to set something like that up. I'm setting up another link for the new property owners on the property now. And the radios are $50 a piece. That's how cheap it is to extend that using microwave.
Ron, is the Cat 5 buried?
No, it's on a fence. It's just zip tied to a fence.
And it's not the SDP, it's not shielded?
Yes, it is shielded.
Okay.
Shielded. It's the stuff that Ubiquiti sells. They sell their own. They call it site. Site usable?
Outdoor.
Yeah, it's for outdoor. So it has a very heavy outdoor coating on the thing. It's stiff. You don't want to use it inside in places where you need to make a lot of bends. But it's UV resistant, which is really important. I think it's also flooded. Some of it is flooded with some sort of a viscous material to keep moisture from getting into it, and it's shielded.
So I assume you're running, that's a 100 megabit connection on to the Ubiquiti.
The Ubiquiti, it'll go up to about 300. Yeah.
Right, but the Ethernet connection shows up as 100 megabit on your router.
On the router, yeah, I think it shows up as well. The router is gigabit, so eventually,
Right.
and I should be able to do more. But right now, the Comcast is the limiting factor at about 75 megabits per second.
Well, yeah, what I was getting at is that 100 megabit Ethernet generally generates a lot of RFI. If you want to tune your radio to 14030, you'll see carriers that is generally 100 megabit RFI. Well, I don't know if you can do that easily where you are, but if you see any carriers around 14.030, that's almost always 100 megabit Ethernet unshielded cables.
Let's see. Maybe we can do that right here. Let me.
I can tune in my neighbors by turning around. I can't decode it, but maybe someday.
030. Yeah, I don't. I really haven't had problem with that. The Ubiquiti, I think, is pretty quiet on those frequencies, so I have not had.
Well, it'll be quiet if you've got shielded Ethernet. You won't see.
Yeah. Well, it's all shielded, and of course, it's in the vicinity of the antenna. In fact, the ground wires on 160 run underneath it, so there's a lot of RF, that floats around there. So I decided, I made that shielded a long time ago, and have not had any serious problems with it. Once in a while, I see some funny stuff that shows up. It's usually not the Ubiquiti stuff. It's usually something else in the building or, on the power lines or something that causes me problems.
Well, if you turned your beam toward the house that's hosting the Xfinity, you might see some carriers on 030.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Fortunately, the house is a quarter mile away, and there's nothing else with a computer that's closer than that. So that gives me a little isolation. I do notice, by the way, the noise level does increase as I point not just toward the house, but in general toward the city of Petaluma, which is about 2 miles away. There's just a general noise and a din. Also, Highway 101 runs up there and is less than a mile away. So there's a little noise that comes from that.
Well, I think the noise is mostly chickens.
Yeah, it could be. Well, it's not chickens anymore. Interesting, the chickens are all gone. They're turning the farm into a worm farm, believe it or not. I thought that was incredible. They're growing worms. They dry them, and I guess there's a market for dried worms. New owners are coming in. The former owner passed away. His wife and kids ran the chicken business for a while. They got tired of it and are selling it now to another property owner, who, by the way, told me I can stay there, which is nice. And he doesn't need that particular area where the antenna is. But they're turning it into a worm farm of all strange things.
It's a lot quieter.
Hey, Ron, how did you find the place, Ron?
Serendipity. I had a construction guy that helped me do some work, and he stored his equipment on this ranch. And I just happened to notice one day when I was getting frustrated with wanting to put up a new tower and a bigger antenna. And I live on a 50-foot by 120-foot lot in suburban Eastside Petaluma. So all of a sudden, it all came together, and I said, this is great. The guy that owned the property, he was one of these larger-than-life ranchers. When he passed away a few years ago, nearly 1,000 people came to his the celebration of his life as they had afterwards. So a very popular guy. Made a deal with him, all in a handshake. That's the way these guys operate. I'm a handshake guy, and that's the way it was. And no contracts, no nothing. It was just there. Of course, I know it's a good idea to have a contract. I do commercial site leasing as well as other things. And so, yes, Contracts are a good idea, but in this case, I didn't have one, and it worked out pretty well.
Hey, Ron,
Yeah.
what's your round trip time on ping, roughly?
When things are working right with Comcast Xfinity, it's about maybe 50 milliseconds, 35 to 50 milliseconds. There's only one router between me and the ranch. This is excellent. As you know, if you do the RT, what is it, Trace RT, you can see how many routers there are. Also, some of the software that I run, in fact, I've got it right here. Let me show you. You can see, if I bring this up here, is Ping Plotter, which has been running. And you can see dropouts. This is something that I have to have a conversation with Xfinity about. But you can see that the pings here, in fact, here's my shack. Here's the 50 millisecond ping mark. So about 25 to 30 milliseconds is typical in tracing that back. But there are some problems with Xfinity. If I look back 24 hours, you can see all these dropouts on here. And
Chris,
terrible
what's
ones
your
here.
what's your ping time to RO?
Let's see here. I'll tell you exactly.
Mine to MTU is about 16, 17 milliseconds.
That's good.
Well, remember that N6RO is got 3 wireless hops feeding it. It goes from Fremont to Livermore to K6LRG in Livermore, and then down to N6RO. The ping time is 30 to 40 milliseconds.
That's pretty good. Yeah. That's pretty good. For guys that are operating East Coast stations from the West Coast, long, probably 300 milliseconds round trip.
Ron,
Yeah.
you mentioned the use of U router. Is that microham U router?
Microham, yeah, microham. And it's just their cheapest, smallest thing that operates CW. It's not the big one that does lots of other stuff. So it just outputs, takes output from USB, from N1MM using WinKeyer format, and then just opens and closes contacts to the K3.
Hey, Ron, Barry, K6ST, a couple other questions. I saw your big tower, which is in the beam, which probably includes 40. What do you use for 80 and 160?
Remote or a rotatable dipole as part of the STEP IR. It's shortened. It uses end loading. The big elements on the end, the 40-meter elements, load it so that it, without any kind of loading coils, will resonate down to as low as 3.4 megahertz. So that's used on those two bands, 60 meters and on 80 meters.
Anything on 160 or not?
Yeah, I load the whole tower on 160.
Okay.
With that big DB42 on the top of it, the natural resonant frequency, even though it's only 70 feet high, is around 1290 kilohertz on the AM broadcast band. So
Okay,
it's
two
a lot of capacitance.
Other question. Is there any generator or battery backup or anything if the power goes off there?
No, there's not. But the power has been very, very reliable out there. We've had very few problems. Even the PS has not affected the ranch out there so far. I pay my fire insurance regularly though through the ARRL.
How do you load the tower? Is it an Omega match or something else?
It's a standard L match. I have a big coil from a broadcast AM broadcast tower that I have for the L, and the C is a great big Russian surplus military vacuum variable capacitor. Each of those two sit in those 12 by 12 plastic boxes that you can buy at Home Depot and Lowe's. And so I can go out there and tune that thing down. And the SWR gets down to like 1.1 to 1 on 160. However, when it rains, it changes. And so I have to go out and retune it again. But yeah, it stays, it works extremely well. I don't have that many ground radials down, and does a bang up job at 160.
What kind of bandwidth do you get? 2 to 1?
Under 2 to 1, about 60 to 80 kilohertz.
Okay. I'm using an Omega match and I only get about 20, but I can remotely tune it with the vacuum variables have a motor on them.
Yeah, that's something I've thought about, but it's broadband enough that I haven't had that, haven't had real need to do that. I mean, if I'm going to operate a phone contest on 160, which I have not done in probably 8 or 9 years, I could go out and tune it for a higher frequency. It's just a matter of turning the vacuum variable capacitor to get it where you want it.
Hey, Ron, Barry, again, question. I don't know if you mentioned this. So on the time frame, how long ago did you start the remote thing with the guy, with the property owner, and what's the horizon been looking like? as far as getting everything up and going to where it is today?
Let's see. I think I did that about 7 years ago. It took me a little while. I actually went out and got permits from the county, so all of it was taken care of. It was not really that bad of a process. Outside of the city of Petaluma, in the county of Sonoma, you can go up to 80 feet without having a real hearing with the neighbors, unless somebody complains. All you have to do is send them letters. Nobody complains. So I got the all of the necessary permits to do that. And then, of course, they had to do the inspections and all that kind of thing, make sure it was safe. So that took about 6 months or so to get all of that done. We finally got it all finished. There were weather setbacks and things along that nature. But once I got it done, I was able to get the thing up and running in a couple of months. Took a little while to get the, get the tower up, get the DB42 mounted on the tower, get everything all squared away on that. And then after that, like most of these situations, it's a long-term evolution. So I say going to the K3 from the Orion 2, going from the ACOM 2000A to the KPA 1500. Along the way, there were lots and lots of changes, little problems that crop up that have to be dealt with that require different software, different hardware, different wiring, things that I've done along the way. So yeah, it's always a project. It never ends. It goes on
So
and on.
when you were talking about the handshake and whatever agreement you made with them, it's always that risk versus reward, because here you've gone to the county, you've gotten all the permits, and if for some reason the handshake falls through, then you're kind of up against the wall, I guess.
Right. And the guy that owns the property is a real estate magnate in Petaluma. He owns apartments from Novato all the way up through Santa Rosa. And I understand he's a very wealthy man. I have not spoken to him, but I have spoken to his management people, the worm ranchers, if you will, that are out there. And everything seems to be okay. The deal will close to sell the property probably in the next week or two. And I should have a better idea then what's going to happen, whether the guy wants a contract, whether he wants to kick me off.
Right,
I hope he doesn't. That'll certainly set some wheels.
And then you pay, you don't have to tell us what it is, but there's some financial arrangement that you pay.
Yeah, I pay an annual rent on the place.
Very cool. Very cool that it's so close if you have to go over there. Very cool that it's high speed.
10 minutes. 10 minutes.
It's not, that's great. And it's not a long way to drive, and very cool that it's not, some crappy internet on a remote mountain somewhere. So you've got something pretty unique there.
Yeah. And I know about crappy remotes on mountaintops. In fact, as we're speaking, I am managing a tower crew 6,000 feet up a mountain in Redding. We had an FM broadcast station up there that blew one of its FM bays. It's a 28,000 watt FM station up there, and the new 20 kilowatt transmitter blew a bay up. So they're working on that. But I went up to that site earlier this week, 45 minutes to go about 4 miles, and you gain 4,000 to 5,000 feet in elevation. Believe it or not, a Jeep Grand Cherokee will barely make it up there. It's a hell of a road. I would never put a remote ham station up there.
Probably another good point to bring up is that all of these remote stations, if you want to keep your remote station, it's generally good to have a lease and some kind of financial arrangement. For the longest time, K6LRG was a gift to us from the property owners, and eventually the property owner changed. And it was then that we found out that they were going to kick us off, but we were able to come up with a equitable financial arrangement to keep K6LRG on the air. So those of you who are looking for places to set up remotes, it probably should be part of, one of the things you're going to want to put into it is a budget for real estate and to maintain your station.
That's the reasonable thing to do. I mean, you're going to be using the property. You want to have, the rights to go on it when you need to. And as I say, this was a handshake with a family. And actually, it's amazing. Once I started putting the equipment in there and I was there, on an occasional basis, I became almost a member of the extended family. I mean, they talked to me about their medical problems, their financial things, everything. I was like, okay, I'm part of the family now.
You turn them into hams.
I would like to do that, but I actually do go into their home to work on the Xfinity thing, and I pay for their internet costs because they don't use much internet there. They have one computer and one laptop, and that's it. So I use most of the bandwidth. So I told them, all right, whatever your Xfinity cost is for the internet, I'll pay that. I'll take care of it. I'll maintain it. Put me on the account so that if there's a problem, I can call up and they'll talk to me. So that's all arranged. We all do that. But yeah, I mean, they're so friendly. The woman, one day I said, I'm going to have to come in a little later. She says, oh, if I'm not there, she says, the back door is open. Just walk in the house. I said, okay. So it's nice to, I hope that's going to continue. The family is going to continue to own the home. That's a separate plot of property. And the rest of the property is going to go away. The actual building the equipment is, they are also going to lease back and hold on to that for probably 10 or 20 more years. So I know at least the equipment is going to be okay. And I assume the tower is too, because they just have no use for that particular part of the property. It's not any place they can raise worms on. So it's good. Maybe my RF will keep the worms warmer too. Who knows? Heat the worms up. That's what they say about bad ground systems, right? Heat the worms up.
On the topic of handshake, W6JTI has had a handshake shack on a mountaintop a couple of miles from his place for 20 plus years. The guy just died. So he's waiting for a word from the executor of the estate that he can use the station.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's always the question. Chances are the estate will sell the property and you don't know what the new property owner wants to do with it. Sometimes they just want to hold it. They would be happy to get a rent, even a small amount of rent, to help defray the taxes that they're going to have to inevitably pay. But if they're planning on putting their dream home up there, with the big swimming pool and the cabanas and everything like that, then the towers may have to go. That's kind of the risk you take.
I noticed the Sonex on the wall behind you.
Yes. I do. Yes, you see that there. I do voiceover. You may also see, here's the Heil DB40. Oh, I can't, if it's into the screen here, but anyway, yeah, I do my my work from here. That's right. Especially with COVID-19, I can do that now very easily.
Yeah,
my Heil PR40.
K6ST, some period of time back, Bill KKN had a talk about the concept of remoting, and not only for the guys that have the systems like you do, Ron, and WM and those guys, but the smaller guys that are ops like me that would like to be able to come in. It brings up an interesting question for the club about, how, if at all, do we get other assuming you want other operators in for a contest, for instance, what does that look like? And I don't know that we have to address it today, but I for one would be interested, because I've got good internet on this end and I'm an operator, but I don't have a station, so a decent station. Something to talk about.
I think we plan on doing another presentation eventually on remote multi operations. We have actually got a new operator at RO that we gave his first little tastes of HF operating from a superstation remotely using the Flex software. So I would imagine that when we get to that presentation, there'll be a lot more context given to that particular situation.
Great, thanks.
Right,
fantastic presentation today.
Yeah, the only thing that I would say is that it's not necessarily any different than whether or not somebody has a big multi-station and who's sort of welcome to operate there, who's sort of helping out, who's sort of doing that kind of thing. So definitely we do want to eventually kind of become a I guess clearinghouse or dating service for people that want to operate stations that aren't otherwise used, and it's definitely something that would be very beneficial to make sure that no good station goes not QRV for an important contest weekend.
I want a Tesla like W2RE has.
Yeah.
I don't know is my audio working?
Yeah.
I find this very interesting, and I have not been very active in contesting for some years here, as most of you well know. I got sucked into IOTA, and the expansion of the Locust Peak remote contesting station kind of took a back seat. But I remember back in 2007 when I was pursuing this dream of a remote battery solar operated station up on some family property about 4 miles away, that the CQ contest reflector, I got crapped on all over the place. People say, oh, remote, you can never operate contest and be competitive that way. I got one thing for those people.
If you look at my SO1R scores in RTTY, you'll see that I do pretty damn good. I would have done well in CQP had Xfinity not dropped out on me, and after 2 hours. But I had rates that were going that were damn good. CW at about 150 Qs per hour, phone about 250 per hour, and then I started getting dropouts, and then it went away. But if you can competitively operate. And by the way, Rick, you were a great inspiration for me in making this remote site.
Me too.
You did come. You came to Red Exa and gave a presentation, and I thought, wow, this can be done. I can actually operate a station with a reasonably large size antenna.
Well, I'll tell you the miracle of things is, as most people know, I'm a technical zip squad. I just did a lot of, and I asked a lot of questions, did a lot of praying, and just kept at it. I remember once Gary NI6T came up to the Locust Peak site, and he said, Locust, I don't know how you did all this stuff. I don't even remember how all the stuff got put together, but Bob K6XX did some antenna work for me up there. Oh gosh, it's been 4 years since I've done anything up there. The road continually craps out and I have to get a bulldozer. But I would say, and thank you for your comments, Ron. I remoting is, and I remember RO and I talked about this years ago about when the time comes to go into an assisted living place or a nursing home or whatever, you know, Ken wanted to keep N6RO going there. Well, look what's been happening with, you know, remote operators and everything else. And I know Tim K3LR, I forget how many years ago now, he had guys remoting in instead of having to fly all the way back there. So, you know, hey, it's the way of the future. Fascinating presentation, Ron. And I got a great setup there. There's an old saying, though, from when I was in the Musicians Union years ago, get it in writing.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. You lucked out with the landlord there that, and I'm so happy for you, but the new guy coming in, get it in writing, Ron. Okay.
Yes, I will absolutely do that. He has an office in downtown Petaluma. I'll go and see him. And by the way, Rick, one of the things I remember most about your remote station was that you had set up a little solenoid so you could reboot the laptop, because that's the only way you can reboot the laptop. And honest to God, I built one of those about 3 weeks ago. It's currently up at that 6,000 foot site that I mentioned earlier, and can recycle the air conditioner in case the air conditioner craps out and I have to restart it when there's 10 feet of snow on the road.
You know, that's incredible because, again, I'm a technical zip squad, but during the winter months, I didn't have enough solar or battery capacity when I started out. And there was no way to use, now, let's say on modern day computers, you can do I forget what, you can remotely, I think, reboot or something. And all of a sudden I happened to see a little 12-volt solenoid advertised someplace. And I went, huh. So I got a local fabricator, machine shop guy to build a little bracket to go over my Asus little solid state drive netbook computer, an Asus 4, I think it was. And son of a gun, that thing is still working, Ron. It's still working.
Hey, Ron, you got a question from K9RJ on text. Will you have full remote capability with a K4 before the K40 Mini comes out? I think.
According to Elecraft, I will. You would probably know more about that than I would, Bob, wouldn't you? Is that?
I'm guessing it would be. Haven't done remote, but I may get into it. I'm guessing the RCForb stuff will work exactly the same out of the box, and then. As far as the K40 Mini, it seems like that's a ways off. I do. When you want to do SO2R, you're going to need a high-power triplexer, I would think.
Well, triplexer won't work with a step IR antenna because they tune on one band.
Oh, of course.
Right. So what I would have to do is a separate antenna. And there is a place I have picked out. Before the former owner passed away, he told me I could build something there. I haven't gotten around to doing it, but yeah, I think I would have like a small antenna. You know, like one of those urban beams from Stepper for the second radio, so I can get 40 through 10 meters, 40 through 6 meters actually. So that may be the route if I actually go with SO2R. But I'm pretty happy running just the SO1R. You know, I'm good on that for now.
Frequency agile antennas have been a complication with some of the SDR technology that's coming out, which captures large chunks of bandwidth, right? Mm-hmm. And it's driving a lot of people's decisions on what antenna they're. I have steppers, but yeah, you could think about it. It's kind of a challenge, right? So.
Yeah. That's if you're using a broadband, something that needs to see everything all at once. like for instance, a skimmer that skims all bands at once, CW skimmer server, or RTTY skimmer, which are all multi-band devices, then you need a multi-band antenna. So that's a consideration if they're doing that. For just straight contesting, like what I'm seeing, if you look at the screen now, that's being picked up. It's not off a skimmer, but I can actually set up a skimmer. In fact, where is CW skimmer is right here. Looks off of the same thing. If we had CW was on here, you would actually see it running at the time. Oh, there is. Well, that's you're seeing RTTY on there, but that only goes one band at a time, so it just looks through the antenna and everything's normative on there.
Man, that's slick.
Yeah, and it all works together. I just click on a spot, and it comes up. In fact, on the other, that's one of the things. In fact, I got a local skimmer that's running on here for the RTTY. You see all the call signs on there. That's the actual. That's VE6UM operating right there. You can see his call sign is coming up on the screen on that part of it. So yeah, it all integrates together, and that's the time-consuming thing, is to make all of that work. You wind up being more of a computer jockey than a ham radio jockey, that's for sure.
So I got a question about the price performance. So it costs you something to get to the remote place as far as whatever you pay monthly and all the setup and blah, blah, blah. And then you had your other stuff at your house before. Maybe the gear wasn't the same or not as much. How would you rate your performance, what you're getting out of the system and who you're working compared to not only the money you put in, but the effort too, because there's a lot to get there.
Well, ham radio has been my interest since I was 8 years old. I'm 71 now, so that's been a long time. And, it didn't really bother me. I certainly would have rather spent the money on something else. And I did have most of the equipment. I had the original Orion 2, which I still have sitting next to me in the rack here. I had the ACOM 2000A. That was an upgrade. God, what did I have before that? It was something not very big, but this was a good size Sirius amplifier. I had the Ten-Tech Titan. Yes, I had that. But this was auto-tune. I like that. So all of that was available there. The rest, I had to buy the tower. The DB42 is not an inexpensive thing. Most of the other stuff was small and put together, but besides having the equipment already, I think the cost of the actual hard cost was around 30 grand to set the system up. So, is it a lot? Is it a little? Well, compared to a 6/6/6 on a rotating tower, it ain't much. But relative to 100 watts in a wire, it's a hell of a lot and a lot of work. But it's, keeps me off the streets at night, right? Planning all this stuff, fixing
and
it.
that's worth a lot. And you can't put it in the coffin when you go away.
That's true. Yes, that's true.
And your contesting results have been impressive. That's for sure.
Well, thank you. Of late, they haven't quite. About 2 years ago, we've been talking about wildfires and things like that. We own radio stations up in Redding, Chico, Yuba City, and Sacramento. And in Redding, the car fire 2 years ago took out 2 of our transmitter sites. One of them hosted 3 stations and 2 translators, and another one hosted a big, powerful, full-class CFM that covers almost down to Sacramento from Redding. And in fact, that's being worked on right now as we speak by the tower crew. But it took me a lot of the last 2 years to rebuild the sites, especially the one that had the 3 stations, because it was a full communication site that we own, leased out to other users that were up there. Verizon, AT&T, we have Homeland Security is up there. We've got a lot of repeaters, things like that. So we had to rebuild that entire facility, and the work goes on and on. It's kind of taking me away from contesting and from going to meetings, various things like that. So that's why I've slowed down a little bit on contesting, but we're almost to the end of all of that work now. So, okay.
I was just say the good news there is propagation might be coming back in the next few years.
That's good. Yeah. So, and maybe I can actually get to retire at some point, although I'm not betting the farm on it yet.
It's happening. I got 360 Qs on 15 meters here.
Oh, wow. That's good.
Wow.
It's always amazing when 10 opens up in a contest, and I'll work like maybe 1 QSO. I'll work one of the guys down in Aruba or something like that, and the rest of the band is dead. And nothing else happens.
That would have put us over the top. Unfortunately, it didn't happen.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks for letting me do the presentation. Good having the conversation. I do appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you guys on the air.
Thanks, Ron.
Okay,
Great job.
Great job, Ron.
N6IE.com if you want to take a closer look at all the stuff. It's all there.
Super.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay,
Thanks so much,
And
Ron.
enviable audio, always. You
thank
got to
you.
show me
Yeah.
how to do that sometime, Ron.
It's just the CM500 plugged into the laptop. That's it. And of course, you got the foam padding on the back there. That helps the acoustics a lot.
Several years of marketable voiceover experience.
There you go. All
That's
right, thank you.
Excellent, excellent.
Thanks.
Really good.
Super job, Ron.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Chris, I just checked 40 meters.
Anything worth chasing?
No, it's a little early, but the last 15 minutes I'll get on there.
I don't think we're going to get 300,000 points now in 50 minutes, but we're doing pretty. I'm pretty pleased with the effort here, considering just the three of us, right? We may be a little haggard after it's all done. I think I'm going to need a beer. But you know, this is a pretty good effort, and I am just absolutely blown away by the amount of DX participation in the JARTS RIDI contest. It's phenomenal.
Yep.
It's unbelievable. The Euros were in there. Even got the courtesy OHs calling in at the end of the contest on 15.
Wow.
The whole deal.
Yeah. So this is normally the weekend that Pacificon happens in, and a lot of people are, you know, because it's usually the one right before CQ Worldwide Sideband.
Oh, that's too bad. I won't be able to attend Pacificon anymore.
Yeah.
Well, COVID never goes away. You don't have a problem.
Uh-huh.
I have a question for Giuseppe if he's got a moment. Can you come?
He's on mute though.
Can you unmute him or ask him to unmute?
I did, yeah.
Oh, good. Hey, Giuseppe, I have a question. I saw in the on the NCCC at the weekend of the Nevada QSO party. There's the Nevada QSO party, the Arizona QSO party, the Pennsylvania QSO party, and one other. And I see you had 4 different logs. I'm curious on something. Did you search and pounce, or did you call CQ, and how did you manage the different logs? Uh-oh.
Shit.
We hear your mouth.
Yeah, we actually don't have audio from you, Giuseppe.
It's a secret. It's a secret.
Does that mean he can't hear us either?
No, I think sure he can hear us. He just doesn't have the right microphone selected on his computer is really what it boils down to. Or it doesn't have
Type
audio.
the answer in the chat, maybe.
It was on my list of things to get hold of. I see him there. Well, we can catch it another time, Giuseppe. No worries.
You said so normally you can turn in the log for another state QSO party in for a different one, although this last weekend was a bit of a mess from a few people pointed out.
Yeah, the only challenge is that out of 4 QSO parties, there's 3 formats, 2 or 3 formats. Yeah. So not everything matches is what the issue is.
Yep.
You know. Anyway,
I just run M1MM 3 or 4 times. That's how I deal with it.
Oh, you run it 3 or 4 times, or do you? But the real question is this, Bill. I get if you're searching and pouncing and you hear a guy from Arizona, you're going to go to the Arizona log. If you hear a guy from Pennsylvania, you're going to go to Pennsylvania log, and so forth. But what I don't get is if you call CQ, how do you know which log to put him into?
By the call, you might guess, or you might actually just ask them, or you might just, calling CQ in someone else's state QSO party is something that's a little rare to do.
A little rare. Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, because if I'm in Nevada, like a K2RD, he ran a ton, but he called CQ and he's in Nevada. I just don't know how that all works. It's one of the conjunctures that we're trying to figure out with Nevada, because Nevada has one combination, Pennsylvania has the other, Arizona has a different, and whoever the 4th one has a different. So you got like 3 different variations. Yeah.
Bill, there were a lot of stations outside of California who are calling CQ in our contest.
Oh, for sure. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, and I'm not even saying that it's not a good idea. I'm just saying that it's, at least among non-super stations, and even outside of the California QSO party, I haven't seen a lot of it.
Yeah, that's why I want to ask Giuseppe, because I think he's a fairly small pistol. I've been to his place, so we'll figure it out. Interesting.
Too many contests.
Too many contests?
You haven't seen nothing yet, man. Now I was just kind of doing my plan for the rest of the year and looking at all the different contests that are happening. And man, we're in the season now. It's kicked off.
Yeah.
Some of the state QSO parties need to consolidate into a regional thing like 7QP.
Well, it's
Problem is
interesting.
none of them want to. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I agree. What's interesting is years and years ago, there was a Nevada, it was Dinky. Then we had the 7QP, which we still have. And then Nevada opened theirs up. And over the last 4 years, it's growing. Not very big, but it's growing. But it's interesting. Yeah.
Then we have this QSO party group that seems to be wanting to consolidate everybody to have the same format, and all the things that we don't want to do.
Okay. I'm Giuseppe.
No.
Wow, very cool.
Okay, I'm going to remove one of you. Okay.
That goes with his wallpaper.
I don't know. I did not have the right setting.
Hold on. All right, solved. Go.
That matches up with VVA's wallpaper.
Oh.
Uh-oh, I think I stopped the wrong one.
I'm still muted. I'm still muted.
Now
you're good. You're good. Very good.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I've been using different software. I've been using the MFJ and N1MM and switching between one QSO
the N3
and the other.
The N3 JFP?
Yeah, N3 FJ.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that, using two different kinds of software for different ones. That could make sense.
And switching back and forth. Yeah, that is what I've been using.
So I think there's three, for sure there's three. There's Nevada, there's Arizona, there's Pennsylvania, and I think there's a fourth one that weekend. I can't remember what it is.
There were four. Yeah,
there were four.
South Dakota.
South Dakota, yeah. So two of them for sure have the same. Pennsylvania and Nevada have the same exchange. Arizona is different and South Dakota is different. So you basically have three different sets of things out of four.
Yeah, basically, yes. And using N3FJP and N1MM. And I had to do, for Nevada, I had to use N1MM because FJP does not have the Nevada setting. And I had to just basically, I mean, it's not a speedy contest, so you can switch between one and the other and all the different settings. So that is what.
Well, with three, there's four contests, but there's three formats out of the four contests. So do you use two of the logging softwares for one of them and one for the other?
So you could also have WriteLog and DXLog too. So you could have a couple more different pieces of software.
It's not that hard to, for instance, N1MM to go from one log to another. That's not the issue as much as how do you know, the operator know which one to do. I get it if you're searching and pouncing and you're hearing Arizona, you're going to flip to the Arizona log. If you're searching and pouncing, but if you're not, I don't get how you're doing it.
N1MM does not remind you that you have to give the section. And so that I had to remind them personally. I had to remind that the Nevada QSO party was requested the
ARRL sections instead of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and FJP, it reminds you that at the very bottom it gives you the exchange. So it reminds you what type of exchange you have to give, and so you see that you have to give SV. I mean the ARRL section.
In this case, all four QSO parties are somewhat small. One is a little bigger, two are so, one smaller. It's not like you have one big QSO party one weekend and a dinky one also. So it's just an interesting combination. So I saw that when you submitted that, Giuseppe, and I was curious.
Yeah, it was kind of confusing. Yeah, I know. And but I did the challenge this year. I did all the 46 QSO party just for the heck of it. And so just to be in a challenge and do all the 46.
Cool, thank you.
You're welcome, no problem. Yeah, today is the end basically. What everything shuts down. The QSO party challenge shuts down with the Illinois QSO party. That will be over in less than 2 hours. It's over at 6 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, I'm liking these club Zoom meetings. I know because of the pandemic, you're not getting together. I have to say, being remote, it's a little easier because not only for Zoom, but we're able to hear. When you're at the restaurant, it's a little harder. So the fact that we're here, it's great stuff, and great to be able to talk to everybody after.
It's the first time I've ever been able to operate a contest during an NCCC meeting.
That's a pretty cool thing. That's SO2 plus Zoom R, you know?
I'm actually SO2R in the contest too. So I guess it's SO2 plus Zoom plus Inline.
I think you were on another one a time or two ago, Chris. You know?
Oh yeah, but not like that. Not like this. This one is. We're way up there in QSO count.
By the way, up here in Nevada, we have some decent stations and some NCCCers, but the SNARS, Sierra Nevada Amateur Radio Society, which is about the same as MDARC in the East Bay, it's about 400 members and growing. I've been doing a lot to try to get more people in HF and in contests. There's it's tiny, but it's a little bit of groundswell. We've gone from just a couple of us to a couple of new people and getting them on. So we're doing our best to try to get people going there.
Get them to join the NCCC.
I like to do that. They want to do their own thing, but it's all good. So you'll hear a few more guys in sweepstakes. We'll hear some guys in CQ Worldwide this weekend.
The ENCC WNCC West Nevada Contest Club.
Well, Rick Tavin in group, I used to live in Truckee. He always used to say it's the Sierra chapter, and between and the different parts of the Sierras up here, at least on the Truckee and the east side, we sort of get together now and then, and support each other.
Yeah, that's great. That's fine business.
It's the reason I asked about the sweepstakes rendezvous is sometimes I won't hear many of the guys at all from the NCCC, and if I go to that 80-meter rendezvous point at whatever time, I end up finding a whole bunch of guys during that half hour or whatever hour. So I'm able to find them when the rest of the time I can't find them.
Well, my attitude about the whole rendezvous thing is to hang out on 80 meters when 80 meters is popping.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't want to break a run. I don't want to work another stuff just to work locals. I want to work all the guys, but just show up on 80 and take care of biz.
Yeah, the super stations or the larger stations are not going to QSY to an NCCC QS. We're going to work. They're going to call us eventually, but if we all kind of are there organically anyway, then we're going to be there, and other people will show up there, and then everybody could have a good time.
That's true. That's true.
In the old days, we used to all gather on 80 meters in the last 15 minutes.
That would work too.
Well, there's also the issue of guys that are doing split sites on the 2 days, which we're not doing now because it's not a club contest. But that's a big difference, If I was when I was doing that regularly, I would have to fight to get some of the local sections.
When you say split sites, do you mean the highly motivated operators?
Yeah.
Two different. Yeah.
Split operation where you.
Yeah, then it's a little effort. It's a little different because you're new meat the second day. Yeah.
That's awesome. It's fun.
But it is a ton of fun. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. It's like being on a de-expedition with a big exchange.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Speaking of the exchange, I just do not understand how some people, not all people, but some people get the exchange format confused. It just doesn't make sense to me, but they do.
Well, the people that are getting it confused, we want them out there, right? They're the people that probably don't contest very often. I remember when I first operated ARRL Sweepstakes in 2007 from a Yaesu 857D in my car from Brentwood. I was sitting there listening to somebody pass exchange. It was a YL that was working the contest, passing the exchange over and over and over again. And I kept writing it down, trying to figure out what was going on there. And I was able to figure it out, through my stupid little smartphone at the time. It was like one of those one of those little button, like a BlackBerry or something. But I was able to figure out the exchange, but I was a little rough around the edges in the beginning, but they were very helpful. It was like a welcoming, it was like a welcome arms. She was just like, yeah, no problem. Let me just walk you through this, and it really kind of hooked me into contesting in general, to be honest. So, we want those people out there. Just got to guide them.
Yeah.
Just got to guide them to get the cue. Put them in the log.
Yeah.
Well, this thing is 35 minutes left of the JARTS RIDI contest.
All right. Well, so officially, our president has lost his internet at home. So I'd say officially the meeting is now over unless anybody else has anything that they would like to bring up.
Are you trying to terminate
No. I say I will keep the Zoom open as long as anybody'd like to continue talking and hanging out at the restaurant.
I got to run. Great presentation. Good to see you guys. 73. See you on for the contest.
Very good. See ya.
Okay, I think I'm going to bail. I got to take a look at my tower crew up on the 6,000-foot mountain, make sure they're not getting into any trouble. So thanks, and good to talk to all you folks.
Thanks a whole bunch, Ron. Yeah, great job.
Yeah.
I've always kind of wondered about that station.
Now you know the secrets.
Great presentation, and see you all, everybody, in the next one, and next weekend in the contest and CQ Worldwide.
Yeah, big one. It's the big
Yeah,
one.
probably I'm going to do single band because I have too many problems on 40 and 80.
Yeah, it's a big contest. That's a 48.
Yeah, okay. See you all.
Good luck.
Thanks so much.
See you all, everybody.